My name is Charlotte Wethington, and I am Casey's mom. In 2004, equipped only with the power of Casey's story, a law was passed in the state of Kentucky that provides families with a hopeful intervention tool, a tool that is needed now more than ever before. In this video, you will hear other powerful stories. There will be stories telling you of the devastating effects of addiction, the benefits of Casey's Law, and the hope of recovery.
I was told that last year we lost more children to addiction and overdoses than we lost in the entire Vietnam War. Now, I think we need to let that sink in a little bit. And people understand we cannot do that. We cannot sacrifice generations.
I had some hesitation about the Casey's Law evaluations in the beginning, and it was guided behind these ideas that I learned along the way in addiction recovery trainings. At some point you always hear people say, well, they just have to hit rock bottom. But my biggest concern when I would hear that in a training, and I voiced this several times as I've grown and learned in my profession, but I've voiced, excuse me, what if death is their rock bottom? And no one has an answer to that.
I was dying. I was gonna die. Every time that I used, I felt like I was such a disappointment and a failure that I wanted it to kill me. And so I thought that I was just going to die and then everything would be okay for my family.
I was on the path to destruction. Like, I was going to die. My parents, even when I was on the run from the police, my parents even had picked out the clothes that I was going to be buried in. They were checking into tombstones and grave sites and everything else. Like, it was over for me.
I was checking into detoxes, I was checking into psych wards, and I couldn't stay put. I just kept running. And so I was praying for about 2 months for something to happen. I remember I even got pulled over and tried to get myself arrested, and they wouldn't take me to jail. I remember the public defender asked me if I wanted to fight it, and I told her no because I was gonna die.
I did feel like my rights were being violated. However, at the time, because of my mental state and where I was at with my disease, that's what my head told me, was that she couldn't do that. I'm an adult.
Of course I felt my rights were violated. But that feeling isn't unique to Casey's Law. I felt my rights were infringed upon by every time the police have come and picked me up. I felt like my rights were infringed upon every time my parents took my keys so I wouldn't drive high or drunk around the community. When I'm out actively using, the only right I care about is the right to put substances into my body. And I will violate yours to do it.
When I first was sent to treatment, I did feel that my rights were violated. But sitting here today, 3.5 years sober, I have more gratitude for the fact that I was Casey Law, because it has saved my life.
Luckily, my rights are allowed to be infringed upon if I'm acting out in a way that it could kill somebody. And that includes me. The only difference between, substance abuse treatment, JSAP programs, and, Casey's Law is you can do Casey's Law without ruining people's lives.
Prior to filing Casey's Law, we tried just about everything. Lindsay, our daughter, was in short-term programs that she would complete and then suffer a relapse. We tried to take away privileges such as use of a car or a cell phone that we were paying for. We tried tough love. We tried a number of things, and those just didn't work.
Because I had always heard in recovery that you weren't gonna get sober until you wanted it for yourself. And I wanted it, but I didn't have that motivation, to go into treatment or to do what I needed to do. So that was definitely a big fear of mine. But, even though Casey's Law had been filed on me, it was still you know, me, myself, I was the one who chose to stay in recovery and continue to do what I needed to do to stay sober.
I have my daughter today, and if it were not for Casey's Law, I don't believe my daughter would be here.
Little did I know there were other things going on that I never in my wildest dreams would have believed.
My experience with Casey Law, both times, at first was anger. I felt at first betrayed. You know, I didn't think I had a problem. The first time I was Casey Law'd, I didn't know about recovery. I've never had any consequences or even know there was another way. So I think on both experiences, I was, you know, very upset with my parents, very just mad at the world, but I also was in a delusional state of mind at the time. I really convinced myself that I was fine, you know, I didn't, you know, they're just blowing out of proportion.
I wake up every day and I go to work 6 days a week, and I get to do that. I'm a student at a university. I pay my taxes, which are things that seem basic to other people. But for someone like me, you know, it was a task to just get out of bed in the morning.
I knew that the law had passed when I saw it, during its inception. I was a little confused and had questions about it, but I never really thought a lot because I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would never or ever need to investigate the possibility of using this.
When the judge spoke to me, he told me not to do any type of manipulation to my mother, and that if I somehow got my way out of treatment, that he would put me in jail. So that showed me that the judge knew that it worked.
Honestly, I was amazed that there was a law that we could use as a resource to help with addiction. And I was also dumbfounded as to why, as a professional in addiction recovery, I never heard of it before.
I contacted my county to find out what the procedure was, and they were not familiar, even tried to say, I don't believe we have that here.
So you don't have to sit there and watch your person die to addiction. You can get up and go to the courthouse and speak on their behalf because they are so impaired that they cannot speak on their behalf.
I think the real benefit to Casey's Law, though, is you can get assistance from a court system without having to file criminal charges that stay with a person sometimes their entire life. And if you have certain felony charges necessary to get into most drug courts, you are looking at a lifetime of having that felony on your record that impacts not only your right to vote, but you disfranchise everybody. And it also impacts the ability to get a job, and 20 years down the road, you can't go with your kids to a school outing because you've got a felony on your record. All because you needed help. And the system only had a felony to offer in order for you to get you help. The Casey's Law process is a way to engage the criminal justice system without engaging it, with using the resources of the court for everybody's benefit.
What we've found is that from 2004 to December of 2015, there were 24 total Casey's Laws filed in Powell County, and from December 2015 to date, there have been 81 total. And that is just a matter of education in our community. It's a matter of partnering with resources, and it's a matter of telling families openly and out loud in the community, this is what you have, these are the options, and this is a good option to try to help your person get better.
Anyone that may be warily eyeing the prospect of increasing their use of Casey's Law in their jurisdiction, or even perhaps starting to use Casey's Law in your jurisdiction for the first time, I would encourage you to do so because I believe that it does work.
Whenever I was in front of Judge Profit, I was like, so mad and angry inside, but he was like, well, listen, I'm going to get you evaluated, and if you need treatment, then that's what we will do. He's like, can you just work with me on that? And I was like, yes. So he made me feel comfortable and made me feel like he really cared.
It had come to the point where something needed to be done. Something had to be done.
I get calls every day. If you don't help me, my son, my daughter is going to die. So I have took that active role in Eastern Kentucky to be that advocate, to break those barriers, to go to the courthouses in other counties.
Maybe the addict doesn't know he needs help. Well, of course he doesn't, because the only thing he thinks he needs is one more. And when we're talking about one more, let's give him one more chance. You know, without convicting him of a felony, without sending him away. You know, they probably do need to be pulled out of the community. I did. I needed to be uplifted and put somewhere safe where, you know, in a controlled environment where, you know, direction and guidance and love was given to me.
Casey's Law saved my life. I mean, everything from family to work to friends, anything else that you can think of, he gave to me.
Because of Casey's Law, I can help somebody else from dying alone.
I have hope today. I don't feel like I need drugs and alcohol to cope with things in life.
If it doesn't work the first time, then keep filing it, because eventually it will work.
I don't have any felonies because my parents stepped in. They loved me enough to, you know, see that eventually that was going to happen. So let's, you know, try to help him now. And I mean, so families that are thinking about Casey Law on someone, do it. It's either you do it or they're going to get it from the court system probably eventually anyways, if they're lucky.
And to see him with his son is just beyond wonderful.
I really had no fears, although I did fear that she would never speak to me again. And we have the best relationship now because of Casey's Law.
It's a way of hope.
And the thing that's kind of ironic about it is that my husband and I now anxiously await that telephone call in the middle of the night. But this time it's not that he is dead. It's to hear him say, "Mom, the baby's been born."
Because of Casey's Law, I am a mother and a good mother. That.
Because of Casey's Law, I am now free.